Hi there. I've had a huge discovery in my own walk and my own journey in getting in my relationship uh, with Jesus, and I want to share it with you. I've been a Christian for since I was 18, so 10 years probably to the month, to the day, maybe even close. I'm not sure the exact day that I first started relating and talking with Jesus. Um, but I want to share something with you, and that's been a huge eye opener for me. Yesterday, had a pretty tired day yesterday, and I have a huge order list and a lot of projects to do, and I wasn't quite sure if I was being lazy or that I was being initiated into some intimate conversation with God. And I want to share my experience with God the Father and God the Son, Jesus, who is Jesus. And so yesterday, instead of doing a pile of lists and going out there and because I could have done that, I decided that I began praying and sitting in this very chair, and I started to have a conversation in using in prayer in sort of an office room with lots of books, and there was a desk, and there was a window, and it's just kind of an elevated place um, with God the Father. And I was talking with him and sharing a few things with him, and we were conversing, and I was telling him about my business, which is Reclamation in Barnwood right now, and we were just chatting about a few things, and I shared about my wife, um, and um, and we decided that we were sitting at a desk much like this, and he was sitting across the desk, and we were just talking and chatting, and um, and then it was kind of initiated by him that we would go sit by the window, sit on the couches, and have some tea together. And he even joked with me saying, "Oh, we'll have a tea time." And this is all in my prayer life, and I'm just having this intimate connection with God, the Father. And um, you can think I'm crazy or not. I don't care. All I know is I love God, and I want to get to know Him and as the Father and His Son Jesus. And this is part of it for me. So I don't even care. You can call me a fool for Christ if you want. So anyway, we transition over to the couch, and there's a window behind us, and I literally went and made some tea, and I went and had some tea with him, and we're sitting there and we're having tea, and we're just kind of chattering here, there, and the other, and in walks this guy into the office, and he's just like bold as could be, like he just owns the place, and he's just like this is like it was just kind of like whoa, like. And it was Jesus, of course, and it took a second to realize that that's who had just showed up, and so God the Father was sitting on the couch to the left with me, and then Jesus popped up, pulled up a chair, and started chatting a little bit with the Father, and I realized at that moment that God the Father was not that interested in me at all. And his eyes were completely focused, the eyes of his heart and direction were completely focused on Jesus, who just walked in the door. And who was sitting, he's sitting in a chair. God the Father is to my left on the couch, and I'm to the right of him, and now Jesus has popped up a chair. And now I realized that I didn't mean nothing, like I wasn't like even in the picture, and probably wasn't even that. I want to use my words carefully. Um, Let me put it this way. I had no business, I had no business with the Father if it wasn't for Jesus. And in watching the Father, where he was looking in his eyes of his heart, and he wasn't focusing on me, he was looking directly at Jesus. And I realized that God the Father is pleased, is satisfied, is and with his son Jesus. Not with his son Jacob, but with his son Jesus. And all he cared about was his son Jesus. And that was like it. Like, in fact, I had no business with the Father. I had nothing with the Father if it wasn't for Jesus. And so Jesus then became the mediator. Jesus then became the one that I was, obviously, if I was going to go to the Father, I had to go through Jesus. And Jesus, like, was actually, like, there. Like, he was like he was like a brother, and he was talking to me and asking me questions, and it was awesome. So the conversation shifted from the Father and me to Jesus, and Jesus was like it. And I realized the verse that came to mind was a few of them, and I want to share a couple of them. One of them was, "This is my son." Remember when Jesus was walking and he was baptized in the water, and heavens opened up, and the Spirit descended upon him on a dove, and a voice thundered from above and said, "This is my son, in whom I love, in whom I'm well pleased. Listen to him." And here I am sitting in a room with God the Father and God the Son, and the Father isn't even giving me a sniffing time of day. He just was, but now that Jesus is on the scene, it's all about Jesus, and Jesus brings him satisfaction. Jesus brings him pleasure. Jesus is just his. That's what satisfies God the Father, his son Jesus, and that relationship with Jesus, and that means more to him than his relationship with Jacob. And I want to be very careful talking like this, but based on what I was experiencing and what I was seeing in my prayer life was that God the Father is well pleased and is completely satisfied. It's like jollies inside of him, excited inside of him, pleasure inside of him in his son Jesus. And the other verse that came to mind, which is resonating with me, is John 14:6, where Jesus says, "I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life, and no one gets to the Father except by me." And so our way to the Father is through Jesus. And that's it. Like, it's all about Jesus. You will not get to the Father. You will not be in the Father's kingdom if you don't know Jesus. Jesus he is it. He is your passport. He is your ticket. He is the key. He is the shepherd. He is everything. If you don't have a relationship with Jesus, you will not see the Father. And don't take my word for it. This morning, jumping on this train that I've been on, I was praying. I was taking my wife to work, and we were praying in the car, and I encouraged her to pray because she's had some heavy things on her shoulders at work, and she started praying. And as we were praying together on our way to work, the verse that came to mind out of Matthew chapter 11, I'll read it to you here. I'm sure you've heard it before. It says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." And these are Jesus' words. And so so I shared that with her this morning, and no big deal. Maybe it is, I don't know, it doesn't matter. But I wanted to discover the context of what was surrounding where Jesus was at, what he was doing, what he was talking about when he shared these words in his time on earth. And in Matthew 11, just above it, Matthew 25, 26, and 27, this validated the prayer and the conversation I had in my own intimate prayer life with God the Father and God the Son. And it says to this, Matthew 11, 25, 26, 27. It says, "At that time Jesus said, I praise you, Father." Here we're getting a look into the relationship and the prayer life and the conversation between God the Son and God the Father. And God the Son is Jesus. And Jesus says, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that you have hidden these things from the wise and intelligent and have revealed them to infants. Yes, Father, for this way was pleasing in your sight. All things have been handed over to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, nor does anyone know the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son wills to reveal him. And the same thing, John 14:6. I'm the way, the truth, and the life, and no one gets to the Father except by me. If we don't go through Jesus, you have no idea. The reason I'm even sharing this and expressing this is I've been a Christian for 10 years. 10 years. And I have not understood at all, not even close, and I don't even have a sniff and clue, to be honest, more than just a little bit that I've discovered in the last 24 hours of my relationship with God the Father and my relationship with God the Son. And these verses, along with a little bit of sanctified imagination prayer, which I'm a huge fan about, and I think God has given us our imaginations, and if you've been redeemed, you've been brought into the sanctification process, and you can imagine what it would be like to have a conversation, and you can just allow God to direct your prayer life. And so through these things and the validation of Scripture through my prayer life and Scripture and inside of me, I can reckon these things as true, and I can count my life on this. I can base my life and my relationship. And now I'm excited. I'm realizing, wow, I'm a lot more thankful for Jesus, because I would have no business with the Father if it wasn't for Him. And I'm starting to discover who Jesus is in my life. He is the go-between between me and the Father. And I'm starting to realize that I'm not doing so great in the Father's eyes, I don't think. But Jesus is always there, and He's always helping me, and He's always like, hey, adjust this or adjust that, or hey, what do you think about this? Come learn from me. I'll teach you. I know what pleases my Father, because Jesus is all about pleasing His Father. Jesus pleased His Father so much that He gave up His life and died on the cross because He wanted to please and love His Father. So He knows what pleases the Father. He is pleasing to the Father. And He is there to help us and help me to discover what pleases the Father. And so if I have stuff, I have junk, I have garbage, whatever, go to Jesus. Talk to Jesus about it. And the one more analogy I'll give that helped me understand it a little bit more is if God the Father, and we saw in that verse that he's the let me use the words exactly. The Father is Lord of heaven and earth, Lord of heaven and earth, Lord of it all, and He's handed it over to Jesus. And the best example I can think of right now is if God the Father had a huge company. Let's say it was a wood company, and in that company, the Father had his son, and his son was growing up and was a part of the company, and he would teach his son things, and there was also the Father had picked workers, the Father had hired people to cut the wood and clean the sawdust and ship the wood and package the wood and gather the wood and cut the wood. So there was this huge organization of a wood company. And God the Father was Lord of it all. He was the owner of it all. And one day, God the Father says, son, I want to give everything to you, and I want to hand all of it over to you. So there's a transition. All the people would go to God the Father, and now the Son is running it all. The Son owns it all. Everything's been handed over to the Son. The Son, Jesus, is taking control, taking the reign, taking the ropes. And now all the workers have to go through Jesus. And if they have beef, they don't go to the Father. They go to Jesus. The Father would say, He's the one in charge now. Jesus is running the show. If you've got, yes, hi, I'm taking a back seat to Jesus, and uh, Jesus is running the show. And thankfully, this is why we need to be so thankful for Jesus, is because he knows what he's doing. He's perfect. He's earned it. He's got every right to be Lord of the company.